Hit record, and I think we're going live. So welcome, thank you for joining in. And just to introduce myself, my name is Peter, and I teach band and percussion at Lincoln High School in Tacoma. And I've been teaching there for about 14 years or so. And I've also had some experience teaching choir and orchestra at the high school level, and choir and band at the middle school level. And so this has been quite an adventure. And about, let's see, 5 or 6 years ago, I started doing differentiated portfolios with my students. And so I did a session with the National Music Education Association, and it just kind of occurred to me that it would be pretty easy for me to share the content again, and hopefully it will be valuable for everyone. So let's get started. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint slides? Awesome. Let's do this then. So the challenge, where this idea generated from, was looking at a couple of critical questions from my own practice. First of all, what data do you have to prove your student growth? How do you know that students are growing? I think especially in music, we have a lot of formative data where we can speak articulately about what our kids can and can't do, but as far as concrete data, it can be a little more challenging. Also, what tools are you using to foster your student growth, and how regularly do we really get to listen to individual students? Those were some things that I was wrestling with. A couple of challenges that I was experiencing. One was having multi-levels of students in one class. I felt that I was just averaging the teaching target, and give me 1 second here. Perfect. And so I was like pitching to the middle, and I was hoping that my older kids would hang in and my younger kids would sink or swim. It was really kind of doing the best I could. And then also I felt like I wasn't really appropriately challenging everyone when I was just pitching to the middle. And also, hold on 1 second. I have a friend who is wanting to jump in. Let me get that information for him. Whoops. There we go. Hold on a sec. All right. I need to. Thanks for waiting, everybody. Matt Pellandini, if you know him, he wants to jump in, so I'm going to pull up my email and send that info to him. Sorry for this, but I appreciate your flexibility. There we go. All right, I'm back. Here comes Matt. Boom, look at that. And swap, share. Okay, I think that got us where we need. Welcome everybody. Okay, so here we were looking at some of the challenges. So I was also repeating some assignments for kids year after year because I was trying to pitch my assignments to the middle. I felt like there is extra challenge that we're facing in terms of the remote levels of teaching, where we really want to be able to keep students growing. In that, doing some individualizing of student learning, because our students are at all different levels, and also have a system to organize the growth of the kids while they're out and while we're stuck at home. So here's the goal. Ultimately, I wanted to be able to grow all students and find systems that would encourage kids to work smarter and to really be able to keep track of everything as we were doing that. So next, here's the idea that I really had, and that was for creating differentiated portfolios. So here are some examples, and I'm going to jump into some of these as we go through, but essentially it's the idea where I'm giving one assignment, but I'm giving it at 5 or 6 different levels, and that allows me to challenge and connect with all different kids, and also make sure that I'm covering a number of topics at the same time. So I wanted to break down what these look like. Essentially, I have them in the students' portfolios. There are 3 things that they're covering. They're covering theory, music theory. They're also covering basic scales or rudiments for the drumline kids. And then they're covering instrument-specific exercises that are valuable to develop skills. So let's look at the theory assignments first. This is an example of 4 levels, and since I made this presentation, I've actually added a 5th level because I've had kids that have been working extra hard. And you could see for this assignment here in the key signatures, they're all working at different levels. So the first level is looking at 7 majors. The next level is all majors, 7 minors, and all minors. Since then, in the most recent version, which I'll show you later, they're doing recognition, their first level, and then the second level is spelling. And for a lot of that, I'm using the music theory, musictheory.net to create those different levels. And I will show you later how I give out those assignments and manage them. But essentially, over the course of the term, they are doing, in music theory, they're covering key signatures, scales, interval identification, interval ear training, rhythm reading, and notation dictation, and then sight reading. And then there's also, I don't have it listed on this, but there's also a listening assignment that they're doing at least once each semester. Then for, this is where, if you have specific questions on any of this, feel free to unmute yourself and chime in. I'm pretty sure you're all allowed to unmute yourself if I did the settings right. So then here is an example of the portfolio map for the percussion kids. You can see on the top here, there's the rudiments where they start and they end up going through all 40 rudiments plus a number of hybrid rudiments. And they're broken up by different aspects. What the students do for these is they'll do 4 videos the first semester and 4 videos the second semester. So they do 8 total. Then they've got exercises that they'll do. They'll do 3 exercises first semester and a solo is their final. And then 3 exercises second semester and then a solo for their final. For the band, mostly my band kids are doing major and minor scales, and then the blue, the upper levels for advanced juniors and seniors, they're doing the full complement of scales, scale in thirds, arpeggios, kind of running through all that. And I'm going to explain how you can customize this to fit your students' skill level later, but this is just giving you an example of how I've broken this up. And then for the instrument-specific exercises, you can use whatever tool you're already using in your classes, but we use the warm-up books that are put out by Lewis Norfleet for a lot of our skill building, and so I implement that into their exercises for their FreshGrade portfolios. So these are long tone warm-ups, basic scale and interval lip slurs, chromatic exercises, And I'm going to show you some videos in a bit of what those actually look like. So before I jump forward to talk about the benefits that I found from doing portfolio learning, are there any questions on what a differentiated portfolio is? Either in the chat or hop in and ask. Essentially, it kind of makes sense where I'm just giving one assignment. So I'm saying, hey, this week is scale number 3, and then all the kids are doing different exercises. Or this week is key signatures. Cool, I'll keep moving. So there are a number of benefits that I discovered of doing portfolios in the regular classroom. First of all, the expansion of the growth mindset, being able to really tie specific data towards the standards grading and learning system. Also flipping the classroom of pushing a lot of these outside of the normal learning, and then enhancing the communication with the kids. Matt asked a question here, do the kids self-select what level they perform? Yeah, that's a question that the kids and I work on together. Often, especially with my incoming freshmen, but all students, they have a final that they have to do for their theory, and that final helps me place them at really which theory level is appropriate for them. And we have that conversation about where they should be. And so it kind of works out. Some kids will ask to repeat a level because they feel like they didn't really master the skills. And what's cool about that is they don't, because they're all mixed within one class, they don't always know who is on what level. So it's not really a pejorative thing if you're on the 2nd level and somebody else is on the 4th level. So it is a conversation between us as we select which levels they're at. Good question. So I wanted to talk just briefly about some of these ideas. The growth mindset is, of course, really pioneered by Carol Dweck. It's based on the belief that your basic qualities are things that you can cultivate through your effort, your strategies, and help from others. If you keep working at something, you're going to grow and get better along the way. And these portfolios really, really help with that. Here's a couple of ways that portfolios build that growth mindset. And this is an example on the right here of one student's scale 2 portfolio entries. First of all, there's regular communication with the students about their work. As he, this is a trombone player, and as he was entering these exercises, I was able to give specific feedback about what he needed to keep working on. And then he was writing back about his learning journey and about what he wanted and questions that he had. And you can see we had quite a dialogue back and forth as he's getting up. And then this last one, after, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tries, he finally got up to the level where he was really nailing that scale. For this trombone kid in particular, he was nailing all his slide positions for the most part, but partials were all over the map. So we were really able to identify and zone in and help him build through that challenge. Another thing that encourages growth mindset is that kids get multiple chances for success. It's less about the grade, this is the next one, and it's more about the growth. So when they recognize that they're not quite there yet, it's not just I did something and I got a mark, but this is the process of helping me keep working to get those skills. Michael, I see your question about class time. We do a lot of the Norfleet exercises and scales in class, and I try, I'm going to throw that in air quotes, to tie, especially with my underclassmen, when they have a chromatic FreshGrade coming up, we will try to highlight and cover some of those. But I don't directly tie, this is our time when we're practicing your portfolio stuff. So there is some integration, but it ends up being a little more natural and a little less contrived, if that makes sense. Also, what's cool about these portfolios is then you can see a direct record of their growth and improvement, and the kids can see it themselves. He can go back and listen to his first video and his 5th or 6th video and see the difference. Also, what I found is a lot of the dialogue that I'm having with students would spill over into face-to-face conversation. Not right now so much because we don't have that, but with this kid in particular, Some of the challenges that he was having was really developing his ear. So he would throw in and do a couple of attempts on his FreshGrade, and then we would pull out trombones in my office and talk through in more detail the comments that I was posting. So it was naturally spilling over into regular conversation in real life, IRL, as the kids would say. And of course, also just having that portfolio promotes a lot of student self-reflection. Later on, I'll show for their solo project each semester, they put up a draft of their solo, and then they have to show that solo to another student, and that student fills out a rubric, and then they also evaluate it on a rubric. And just like a draft of an essay, they're taking notes about what edits or addition changes, improvements they need to make, and then they submit a final draft. So that draft and growth process kind of builds together to really help that growth mindset through the portfolio. Here's an example of that solo where you can see his draft coming in, and there's a couple of rubrics that he had scored himself on. The other thing that's cool about this is it allows me to tie their skills directly to standards. So if I have a standard of technique and or scales or tone and fluid or solo, whatever the standard that I'm really trying to assess, I can drill down on that because each student's work is tied to a standard. And I was just, before I was really using these portfolios, I was just kind of generally grading concerts and generally grading how I understood students' performance to be, but I didn't specifically have standard-based data on each kid. And so this really allowed me to do that. Another big piece of the benefit of using portfolios was that I was able to flip my classroom in a sense and have a lot of their individual work be outside of rehearsal. Don't judge me, but I was terrible about covering music theory until we would come up against a train wreck where the theory wasn't happening and there were knowledge gaps, and then we would cover it then. But I didn't have a strategy or an approach to really teaching it. And so this helped me give them a regular chance to work on that outside of skill, or a regular scaffolding of multi-years of increasing levels of difficulty of their own individual practice outside of class, to allow us in class to have more time to focus on the work, the music, the important part of performing. Julie, I see your question about the platform that we're using. I'm going to explain that a little bit later, so I will get to it for sure. The other thing that flipping the classroom like this does is it gives me a chance to listen to individual students, and that's always like the rub of time. And I can talk a little bit about how much time does this take. But it's always like, do you go down the row and have playing tests in class, which allows everyone to hear, but also takes up a lot of class time? Or do you push all of that outside the school day, which takes up my home time or outside of class time to grade? It's just a balance of priorities. And what I found is that I just wasn't doing in class down the row playing tests because I needed and wanted that time for rehearsals. So this is what I decided that worked for me. And then, as I already mentioned, I was finally able to cover the music theory, which I wasn't covering at all before. The other thing that's really cool about this is depending on what platform you're using for your portfolios, there's just great communication. The portfolio that I have been using is called FreshGrade, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But what's neat about it is it gives direct notifications to the students when I'm commenting or grading on their portfolios. So it pulls them in, and we have interactions. Sometimes I'll be grading at like 9 on a Sunday, and then they'll comment right back afterward because they saw that I was grading. There's also parent access where the parents are able to jump on and see the portfolios of the kids. And it's not as frequent that the parents get to hear their students perform. And so I think that's pretty neat for those parents that want to see that as well. And it shows a little bit more skill-based academic work that's happening. It's not just a slide class where they're playing and making music, but it actually shows the intentionality of how we're learning and growing. So I think that's been a pretty cool piece of it. So I want to slide over and talk less about what I think, and let's get some student voice evidence here. Boom. Wait, there we go. Okay, so if I've set this up correctly, you'll be able to see and hear. If somebody wants to throw in a comment to let me know that you can hear it once I hit play. This is showing some of the videos of kids and off their portfolios and some student thoughts about FreshGrade.
I'm Guy Arnold, and what I think about FreshGrade is it's really good to learn theory and to practice your different skills and try to memorize them.
Change it up, baby.
My name is Joseph Simpson, and I play the bass drum for Lincoln Drumline. And I think we should have FreshGrade because it helps us with all types of counting, and it helps us to play every instrument. Woohoo! Let's go.
My name is David Brazil. I'm the euphonium player for the Lincoln Band, and usually FreshGrade, my first thought about it is I don't want to do it, but then after going into it more and actually playing through all the stuff that I need to do, it's helped me become a better musician and overall just worked on my tone and all the things that I've really been not particularly good at.
Hello, my name is Amira, and I'm here today to do accent tap. First, I will be doing it with my right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2.
My name is Ricardo. I play bass for Lincoln High School, and I like FreshGrade because I can look back and from freshman year videos and see the growth that I've made throughout the years. So.
There we go. All right. Let me switch back to my PowerPoint here. There we go. So it's interesting that my students definitely have, I would say, a kind of a pejorative about the FreshGrade. They don't, most students don't love FreshGrade, but they also recognize that it is the one mechanism more than anything else that helps them grow. And they see really quickly that those kids that do their FreshGrade assignments regularly are the students that show significant growth. And correlation causation, you know, you could tease that apart. Maybe it's the kids that are super into growing and getting better are the ones that are more successful at their FreshGrade, or maybe it's because they're working on their portfolio assignments. But regardless, there's a direct relationship between that. And so it's awesome. FreshGrade a year or two ago gave me some FreshGrade socks. And so I love putting on the FreshGrade socks, and the kids will see I'm wearing them and they'll all like groan and roll their eyes. But it's this playful thing where they recognize the value of it, and you could kind of hear them speaking to that too. And they mentioned a couple of other things that I wanted to cover. Some added benefits of portfolio learning, some which I've spoken about already, but some that I didn't expect and that were pretty awesome. One is I realized that it allowed me to simplify and organize my instruction and assessment. I was, previous to doing the portfolios, I was kind of coming up with assignments for the sake of assignments because I needed to put something in the gradebook. And this really gave me a structure and a regularity. They get one assignment each week and they're short. The theory assignments take maybe about 5 minutes or less. And the scales or things, they're not meant to be giant projects. It's just weekly assignments for them to do. Some kids will do one each week, and some kids will do all the assignments at once. I drop at the beginning of each semester, I drop all the assignments, and some kids will do them all right away, and some kids will do them all right at the end. And some kids kind of trickle them throughout the semester. The other thing I realized is that with the portfolio map, it also became a curriculum map. So Michael, this speaks a little bit to what you were saying. I've realized that if my percussion kids are coming up on an intricate diddle exercise, I got to make sure that they have the skills to be covering that. So whether that exercise directly or whether just covering those kinds of concepts in the regular work that we're doing, there is an integration that has allowed me to find a curriculum map where I'm thinking at the beginning of January is when we're covering a 6/8 diddle exercise. So I got to teach my percussion the compound time signature. And so it allows me to make sure that I'm hitting those standards and not just based on the concepts in the music, but I'm regularly covering the different pieces of instrument scales and music theory. So that's been cool. Also, there's a level of accountability for the students where I will have students at the end of the year that will say, you know what, I really didn't do a whole lot of my fresh grade and maybe I should repeat level 2 again. And it isn't a negative thing. It's more of just an accurate understanding. Like, yeah, you'll have a lot more success if you do this over again than if you move up. And that it's very rare that I will tell a student that they need to redo a level. It's more often that they come up and bring that up to me. But I think that that level of accountability for me, making sure that I gave the students what they need to be successful at the next level, but also for the kids, that's been really valuable. Also, one of the cool things has been the record of growth between freshman level to senior year. I kind of get nostalgic at the end of senior year when I'm grading their senior finals, and I will go back and I will watch the videos from their freshman year, and it is remarkable. We don't often see tangible evidence of the growth of kids because it's so incremental, and having that level of data is kind of unique. And even like there was a clarinet player I had who was a spastic, impulsive, hilarious, out of the box freshman. And he's becoming a sophomore who's really starting to grow and mature, but his clarinet playing is just remarkably different. And so as I was grading his first semester final this year, I sent a video to his mom. I emailed her a copy of this semester and then his first video from freshman year. And just the growth in his playing was incredible. And having that record of growth is really pretty cool. The other thing I alluded to is the students' growth mindset and their grit and persistence. I'm really surprised how many students will, I don't just give out meeting or exceeding. If they're not up to standard, I'll explain to them how and why. And it really is, it really is cool to see how many students will continue to keep working video after video. I had a flute student this fall, a freshman player, who was having trouble controlling his octaves. He would start a scale and then it would drop down, and he wasn't hearing or aware of the mechanism to control that. And man, he was just doing video after video, trying again and watching. And he came in as kind of a nominally committed student, and something about seeing his portfolio and reading the comments, he just turned into a monster worker and just getting the understanding of woodshedding and getting better as a result. So that was pretty cool. I already mentioned the data for standards-based grading, but also for our teacher evaluation system. Almost all the time when I need to talk about my practice, FreshGrade is such a great way for me to do that, because administrators, especially if they don't quite have the understanding of music, I can show them data through FreshGrade about students' achievement and their growth over time. And that has made that super, super great for that communication and the justification of what we're doing in class. Another thing that was cool, and this was actually one of the reasons I started this portfolio, was I needed to do a better job of getting my kids ready for college. I had kids that would kind of shuffle their way through the program and then would come to me at the beginning or sometimes the end of senior year and be like, man, Mr. Briggs, I really think I want to study music in college. And I was like, oh, and just realized that I hadn't done the best job of getting them ready for college or giving them the skills they needed. So especially for theory, I started at what do college freshmen need? What do they need to know on that entrance exam? And then I backed it up to the point where I was reaching the freshmen that were coming in. And now as over the course of time, man, they're labeling, they're doing ear training and recognizing, major and minor sevenths. They're talking about how to change a diminished to a minor interval. I mean, it's really been cool to see that growth as a result of that map to get them college ready. And then this is my favorite one. This is a result that I really never expected, but I've discovered an organic mentoring showing up with the kids, where some of my upperclassmen will see a freshman, usually, practicing one of the exercises that they played a long time ago, and they get nostalgic. They remember working on that, and they sort of organically go over without me prompting or setting it up. And they're like, oh, I remember this exercise, and they're playing it with them, and they're like, yeah, man, I really struggled with this piece until I started like holding the stick like this. And it's just really cool to see, as much as they don't like the work, because work is work, they do really experience and own the growth, and they get excited about it, and they've started kind of naturally helping each other, which I didn't plan for, but it's a really cool byproduct. I want to talk about how you can set up your own, or kind of more specifically how this works, but I wanted to pause again to see if there are any questions about about the what before we get into the how. I'm still monitoring the chat feed, so feel free to jump in, and I'm going to show, as I talk about how, I'm going to show a little bit. Actually, I'm going to do that now. Let's go here. This is the part where I built things over time, and I don't necessarily expect everybody to go this crazy, but this is how it worked for me. I set up a website with the theory exercises in them. So the students will, when it's their theory term, they will decide which level they're at, and they will go to that level, and then they have all the assignments on that web page. And then I have embedded in the page the explanation, and then the assignments, where they start the assignment, and it has it already here for them. And it does that for all the different theory assignments, giving them support. I also give my students a theory cheat sheet that has all of the answers, and I could show that to you later if you're interested. But this is like tips that I created for kids on working their own evaluation through checking for interval ear training, and then this is the exercise that they do. So I have these websites ready to go for the kids, and I actually have, I was gonna talk about this later, but I have put this, each of those assignments that I have have a specific code from musictheory.net that limits them to 35 questions, that puts exactly what's happening, the parameters on the assignment, that gives them, it stops them when they get to it. And I have all these links already set up, and I've been selling this on Teachers Pay Teachers for $10. And if you are interested in that, I will give you a link to how you can get that at the end of the session, so that you don't have to create for that music theory. You have it all right here. If you want to use that, you're welcome to. And then I'll just briefly go to the FreshGrade. So these are the portfolios for FreshGrade. Matt asked a question about FreshGrade is something that my school bought into, and the answer is no. I'm actually not, it's not a approved product through my school district, because everything's supposed to be Microsoft, but they don't really offer a great portfolio product. So this is what I choose to use. So this is Gabriel's portfolio, and you can see that he's got some scales and some, here's a listening response that he did. And what he sees when he jumps in is he'll see it's exercise 3 for everyone, but then it shows him whatever level he's at. So the kids essentially are differentiating themselves. And then I just have one column in my gradebook that says exercise 3. even though they're all doing different things to get that assignment, it keeps my grade book really simple. And then we just differentiate on the front end of that. Now I would like to jump back in and talk about how. There we go. So obviously to coordinate and work with digital portfolios, you need to have some sort of a system to manage your assignments. A lot of people use Canvas, Teams, or Google Classroom. There's a bunch of them out there. I use FreshGrade because it is a portfolio platform. As you saw, the view that I just showed you of Gabriel's portfolio, that's what he sees too. All it is a list of all his assignments and all the video stuff that he's done. And it's all right there. There's no other bells and whistles. It's not shared with other students. It's not, there's not polls or links or all this other stuff. It's just really, really simplified into his work in a portfolio. And that is great because the kids can easily see what they've done and what they need to do. And so that's why I've really appreciated that portfolio platform. There are other ways that you can do assignments similarly. These are some examples of music learning management systems where you can give assignments on Sight Reading Factory or Smart Music and grade them that way as well. If you want to differentiate and kind of figure out how to use those for portfolios, you could. I give my students work on Sight Reading Factory, but then they have to talk about it on their FreshGrade. So I don't use this as a paid product to give assignments. And then what I also do is I use other web resources like Tone Savvy, which used to be eMusic Theory, or musictheory.net. So I'm kind of incorporating all of those. So to really make your own, first of all, I would say start small. I did sit down over the summer and kind of map all this out, but I also started with just music theory. And I've created that map of music theory first. And then after I got that up and running, I went on and I added different pieces over time. And I've been doing the full portfolio projects for about 6 years now. But don't feel the need to jump into a full comprehensive curriculum to start with, especially not, you know, right now when we're just trying to tread water anyways. But I would say find one aspect of your classroom that you want to start with. So set some goals. Where are your kids now and where do you want them to get to be? And if you were to isolate just one thing like vowel shape or phrasing or articulation or scale technique, and then how would you make different levels of difficulty to kind of begin to sketch that out? I would also say, what methods and resources are you already using? I would not recommend jumping out and finding new books or methods that you're not currently familiar with and trying to create out of that. It should be an organic representation of what you're using in your classes. And so that's a good way to think of that, is to keep it familiar, especially when you're starting. Then I would figure the set it up piece. Thinking of how many levels you want to have and what difficulties you're going to get and what resources and methods. So you're kind of putting your goals and your methods and resources together to actually start sketching and writing it out. And then finally, think about how you want to manage your data. I would really recommend whatever your students in school are working with. I think that's a great way to go. There are some products out there. I've done a lot of exploration of Edmodo and Schoology and other products. We are a Microsoft district, so working with teams. I just feel like the portfolio design product keeps everything that I need in a focused space that keeps it really about the growth and without any of the clutter. I don't need student interaction for what we're doing here. You could certainly use that for some of this, but yeah. I also, before I finish, I also wanted to talk about some other ideas I've had about interacting distance learning with these portfolios. One thing I'm talking with my students about is taking some of the videos from their portfolios and having me share in a class-wide. So if we're doing a Teams chat where all the students are engaged, we can watch a student's solo performance, and then we can all talk about what we see and what we hear, almost like a studio from back in college when a couple times a semester you would perform and get feedback from all your peers. I like that idea because if I can take, with students' permission, of course, but if I can take some of the stuff off of their FreshGrade or videos that they're sending in, it allows all of us in communication, not just to see and hear each other's faces, but to have a group conversation about the work that the kids are doing and remind other kids, hey, this kid is working on a new solo. What are you working on? So we can do a little bit of that and also just keep going with what we're trying to do, even though we're all separated. So maybe that online studio might be a good idea. I would like to add that into what I'm already doing. I'm also having students, they are able to put things on their portfolio that are not directly tied to an assignment. So I have sent out smart music to my kids and Soundtrap and some other things for them to work on. And I'm encouraging them, you know, if you are working with stuff, throw it up on your portfolio so I can check it out and give you some comments. Christine, I see your comment there. Have you had many technical issues with getting kids onto FreshGrade? Yeah, I have to say with Flipgrid, I don't quite understand it yet. There's different links and different codes, and I don't really know how to coach them. The advantage to Flipgrid is they get to see each other's videos. The disadvantage is that it doesn't have, oh, I didn't mention this. It doesn't have a gradebook attached to it. The FreshGrade, I can grade the students' videos as they're submitting them. Then I can export that into a CSV file and upload directly into our gradebook program. So I don't have to go kid by kid and enter their assignments. I can just export from FreshGrade, import into our grade reporting system, and then I'm good to go. That gets a little in the weeds as far as how. If you are a Tacoma teacher and you want me to talk about how to upload and export into our gradebook system, I'd be happy to have that conversation. But FreshGrade, there are two types of FreshGrade right now. One is FreshGrade Next, and the other is FreshGrade Classic. If you're just kind of using it on your own, you can have a free version. Schools can pay to get connection with more student data and auto-populating classes and all of that. But the setup is really quite easy, especially with the FreshGrade Classic. I set my class list and then I give them a code and they just type in that code to register, and then it's boom, it's all there. I can manage and reset passwords. I can help kids get access to their accounts if they need it. It's really quite simple. It is free. You can just go to FreshGrade. I think it's freshgrade.com. Google it. And no cost to the students, no cost to the teachers for using FreshGrade. I'm actually in process of checking out another portfolio app that I want to look at called My Blueprint. So if you want to know, hit me up and I'll let you know what I think of that one. I don't know that FreshGrade is not the only way to do this. It's just the way that I found that works for me. But it is it's really user friendly. That's the other reason that I liked it, is there was really no training as far as working with the students. It is on an app, so a lot of my kids will record from their phone. They can upload. Some of my kids will record but then bring it in, and I will plug their phone into my computer. I also have computers at the school, so even in a low-income school, dealing with the devices hasn't really been an issue. And much of what we're doing is working remotely anyways right now, so it matches pretty well. Cool. So here's some shameless promotions to finish out. First of all, thanks for tuning in, and I hope this has been valuable. I'm happy to stick around and answer some questions. But if you are interested in those theory assignments, I'm happy to send those to you so that you can use it. you just hit that paypal.me/SoundEdTeachers. You can write that down, or I can see if I can drop a link to it. But that'll ship me $10, and then I can email you that file. If you think it's valuable, I would love to get that to you. It did take me quite a bit of time as I was making that theory map and putting all those links together. So I want to make that available to you. Also with SoundEd is my kind of side hustle professional development LLC, and we've got some stuff coming up. I'm working with Central to get some clock hours for a webinar on culturally responsive music teaching. And also I've done some day-long trainings on growing students with trust psychology and growth pedagogy. And I'm looking at breaking them up into smaller units that we can do online, covering classroom culture, classroom management, and delivering instruction and teacher self-care. We're covering all 4 of those. And then also, if you want to stay connected, the Facebook or Instagram is a great way to stay in touch, or sign up for our email system on sounded.org, and I'll send out anytime we've got a workshop or webinar coming up so that you can get information about that. So thanks for tuning in. If you have any other questions, feel free and open up the mic and let me know, or throw it in the chat, and I'll just kind of hang out for a bit, and we can keep talking. There's that link for the PayPal if you're interested in the chat window there. And I just also wanted to just say thanks for taking the time and tuning in. I really hope this was valuable, and it's nice to see your faces, some new friends and old friends, and I know we're all busy and it's Friday afternoon, but I really appreciate you tuning in. Michael, I will certainly save and send out this PowerPoint. I think that's a great idea. If you send me an email, peter@sounded.org, that'll remind me to make sure to get it to you, but I'd be happy to send it out. Good, I'm glad it was helpful. Yeah, and also, if you start using this or kind of customizing it in your own classroom, I would really love to hear about it. Let me know, because I'm always refining and working on making this work well for my kids. So it'd be cool to hear how you're using it too. All right, everybody, it looks like there's no more questions, so I'm going to close out the meeting and webinar, but nice to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and go enjoy your weekend, all right? Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, good to see you. Take care.
Bye. Okay.